Good morning and welcome to the Art of Science. Today we're going to talk about the water cycle and a little bit about erosion. So the first project that we have to do is that we are going to make a water globe, which is like a snow globe. Now to do this in your packets, you have one of these, but we're not actually going to use this right away because we have to wait for a lot of glue to dry in this project. So what we're going to do first is you have this little insert here, and we have pre-glued a little house and these blocks on it for you with some really intense glue that should not come off. But what you're going to do is you are going to take your extra little blocks that are in your package, and you are going to use the white glue, which is Mod Podge, and a little brush provided. And you are going to create some type of a structure. It's going to be a mountain or landform. And you can arrange the blocks however you want to make your structure. You can have like one side be super heavy. It depends on you. It's going to look however you want. So you're going to use the Mod Podge. You're going to paint the Mod Podge, the white glue on, and then you're going to stack your things however you want them. Okay? And then you're going to have to wait about 15-20 minutes for the structure to stay. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take more Mod Podge, more of the white glue, and you're going to paint all of the sides until it's covered with glue. And then you're going to take this funky brown gravelly stuff and you're basically going to sprinkle it on so that it's covered until the whole thing is covered, and then it can look sort of like this. Do you see? It's really cool, right? Now, once you get your structure covered how you want it to be covered, you're going to have to let it sit and dry. At least 24 hours. It's a very long drying process, but that's because we want everything to stick really, really, really good. But once it has stuck really, really good, so like the next day, once it's not coming apart, this is what you are going to stick into your snow globe, your water globe, okay? So once this has dried, and it's nice and solid, what you are going to do is you're actually going to take this part, you're going to take the actual globe, and you're going to fill it right to about here with water, preferably filtered water, but right here, okay? Ooh. I have one already filled with water. Amazing. Very exciting, filled with water. You're going to pour in the glitter, which you have. Your glitter is going to represent precipitation. So it's going to represent rain, it's going to represent snow, it's going to represent hail, ice, anything water-like that comes down from the sky. And you're also going to add in your clear glue. So not the white glue, the clear glue. You're going to add that in. Just pour it right in there. And the reason we're adding glue to the water is basically to slow down the glitter when it falls, right? So in real life, when rain falls, it basically has to go up against all of the stuff that's already in our atmosphere, and that slows it down just a tad. So we are going to replicate that in here. Ooh, it's like we're mixing up a potion. It's very exciting. Very, very exciting. Okay. So once you have your water, your glitter, and your glue in your globe, and after this has dried for at least 24 hours, we're going to take this We're going to pop it in here. Oh, very important when you are creating your structure is you do not want your structure to go beyond this edge here all the way around, because otherwise it won't actually fit in. But once we're ready, you pop it in there. Ooh. Nice and tight. Ooh. And then we take the screw cap and we're going to screw this on nice and tight. Okay, we don't want spills and thrills. All right. Ugh. Nice and tight. You could maybe put a little. Yeah. And then whew, you have a water globe. Very cool, right? So basically what we are trying to demonstrate when we make this is we're demonstrating the water cycle. So water, and when I say water, I mean the stuff in the oceans, the stuff in the lakes, the stuff that's in the ground that you can't even see, the water that's in you and me, the stuff that's in plants, the stuff that's in animals, all of that. When the sun hits all of that and heats it up, okay, water molecules are normally moving like this. They're just sort of going like this. And when the sun heats them up, they start to go like this. They go really super fast. And then they turn into steam and water vapor. And we can't really see those things very well, but they go into the air. And they start to float up really high because they're moving so fast. And by the time they get super high in the sky, it's much colder up there in the sky. So they start to cool down and they stop moving quite so fast and they start to slow back down and they turn back into water droplets up in the sky. And then they start to bump into each other and they hold on and they get bigger. And when they get big enough and heavy enough, they fall. And that's how we get rain, right? So when they're up in the sky and they're turning into water droplets and they're holding on to each other and they're first starting to do that, that's where we get clouds from. And you guys know when it's going to rain because the cloud is really super dark, right? It's dark and scary. Those are dark clouds because there's so much water in there that it's actually blocking out the sun, and that's why they look dark. And then they fall. And that's the water cycle, right? It falls down and it goes back into the ocean or the plants or the people or the lakes, and then the whole process starts over again. The sun hits them and they start to move really fast, and then they go back up, and then they cool back down, and then they hang out, and then they drop again. And it just keeps happening because it's a cycle. Even when they don't move quite like this, and when they are just sort of moving like this is when they're ice. When they're not moving very fast at all, they're sort of just chilling in place, right? Even ice melts and enters the cycle back again. It cannot escape. But when the water falls, there's this fancy thing that happens. When water falls and hits the ground in a steep level. So we live in New England. There's lots of hills and mountains and valleys, right? So when the water hits a hill, does it just stay right here? No, right? It runs down. You know this if you have a steep driveway. All the water runs down. That's because gravity is pulling it down. Just like gravity pulls down the rain droplets when they get too heavy. It's pulling it down, and when it hits the mountainside or the hillside, gravity pulls it down like a ball. You ever dropped a ball on a hill and it rolls down? Same thing happens to water. Now, the thing about water is going to want to go the easiest way it can. So it sometimes changes its path. So like if this is the hill and water is going down, it's going to stop here and it's just going to go around it. and it's going to go, so it's not always a straight line. It's whatever is easiest for the water. And it's going to go as fast as it can. And when that happens, different paths of water start to connect. So like rain hits the hillside and it starts going down in a tiny little stream. And that meets up with another stream and another stream. And then it forms a bigger path of water like a river. And then that keeps going and going and going. And eventually water's ultimate goal is to get to the ocean, right? But sometimes it doesn't. Most of the time that's where it ends up, but sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it ends up in a lake, or sometimes it just gets sucked into the ground and into underground reservoirs, and that's groundwater. So what you guys are going to do is you have this cool little banner cutout thing, and yours is blank. It's drawn on, but you guys have some watercolors, and you are going to paint this cross-section of a watershed. And a watershed is basically what we just talked about. It's where all of the water goes in a given area. So like in Sutton, we are part of the Blackstone watershed. It's very cool. And this is going to be a little bit of a challenge for you, because what does water do? It flows, just like in the picture. So when you're using your watercolors, you have to be careful, because your watercolor, especially if you use too much water, is going to want to just take its own path. So you're going to want to make this whole thing blue, right? But the water might go, I think it's easier to go over here. So you're going to have to keep an eye on that. But this is a good activity to do while you're waiting for your snow globe stuff to dry. Right? Right. Now, the super crazy thing about the water cycle is water is constantly changing, but staying the same at the same time, which is an odd concept in and of itself. But water is also changing the earth around it while it's going through its cycle. And we call that erosion. So basically what that means is that when water is flowing, when it's moving, it sometimes picks up little pieces of rock and soil, and it moves them places. So, for instance, if you were to have a stream of water, say a hose, say you don't care about your water bill, and you have a hose going on a rock for a long time, a really, 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 really long time, eventually the rock would start to wear away, because teeny tiny little pieces of that rock are getting chipped off by the water and the pressure constantly, and the water is moving it away, and it's adding it to the ground and then moving parts of the ground too. So to explore this, you have another project to do. Again, probably while the first project is still drying. What you guys have is you have an aluminum pan, and it's filled with, and you have a bag of sand. So you're going to put the sand in the pan. It rhymed just kind of in a weird way. If your sand is super dry, so like if you can't mold anything in it, you're going to want to add some water, about a half a cup, maybe a whole cup of water. And you want to get it to the consistency of like beach sands, like you're going to make a sand castle, right? So you're going to pad that down. You're going to pat it down, okay? And then what you're going to follow the instructions on your lab sheet, but basically what you're going to do is you're going to make a landform in this. So a landform is like, you're going to make like a hill and a valley and a plateau. You can make a plateau. That sounds fun. So just, you know, add some stuff. Could be cool. I'm going to add some mountains, because again, we live in New England. Ooh, I'm gonna do a whole little mountain range. Sounds exciting. Okay. So once you've added some Landforms. You guys also have a paint stirrer and a cup. So you're going to tape the cup onto the paint stirrer, all right? And you want to leave enough of the cup exposed. And then you're going to actually just poke a hole in the bottom of it. And then you're going to tape the paint stirrer onto the pan. Once your paint stirrer and cup is taped onto the pan, it's not going nowhere, what you're going to do is you're going to put something under the pan on one side so that it's tilted. If you have any books are good. Be careful because we are going to deal with water, so not a book that you want to get wet. Legos would be a great thing to prop under there. Shoes. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take some water and you're going to pour it into the cup. And water is going to slowly drip out of your cup. And then you're going to watch and see what happens not only to the water, but to the landforms that you made. And see how they change based on the water. And you can see if things are moving, if water is, where is the water going? Is the rock being moved in any capacity? And if you don't feel like anything's going on, you can then experiment by making the incline higher and see how that affects it. Oof, it's making a river. Okay. So there's lots of stuff for you guys to do, and I hope you had fun. Bye.